like less than a mile, and just to see and then meet other investors, hand our cards out.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Have you ever been to an auction yet?
No, we were hoping to go with Chris, but he canceled it because of the rain.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be under an awning, and there's going to be numerous trustees, and it's going to be like a disturbed anthill. So there's not like an organized way that they say, okay, we're going to present property such and such, and they do not use the addresses, they use the legal descriptions.
Okay.
So
No.
they don't say 123 Smith Street, they'll say block 37, lot 12, and Cherry Hill subdivision or something like that.
Sure. Okay.
So with that said, you want to make sure that you have, if you're looking at any properties that are presented, but there's going to be numerous substitute trustees, and they have the ability to show up. If they have a 10 o'clock docket time, they can show up anytime between 10 and 1. They have an 11 o'clock docket time anytime between 11 and 2. And if they have a 1 o'clock docket time, anytime between 1 and 4. So they could show up right at the very beginning, and auction.com will, and they'll have a table set up. And the other ones typically don't have a table set up. There's going to be a service there that's called Roddy's. They'll have a list that you can send an email to or text, and then they'll email you the list so you can have a list of what they have as far as going to be auctioned that day.
Okay.
So that's a very dynamic list. It'll change. So if auction.com has said and updated that it's been pulled, then the likelihood is it's probably been pulled, but you can verify with them when you get there.
So you just approach the substitute trustee, show the paperwork for the bankruptcy, and that'll stop it?
No, you should do something well ahead of that. And that's a pretty involved process. So I hesitate sharing all the detail on that, because when you're doing this, you're working with foreclosure attorneys. Their goal is to get this thing presented and sold. Well, if you are in there trying to meddle in that and delay it, they're not going to take that kindly. So they're going to want to know as much information about you as possible, and you have to be as anonymous as possible. So you can't call, you can't send email, you can't do a lot of the things. You might get away with it on one, but then the next time you try and do it, they're going to see a pattern and go, hey, you know, this Mike Smith is doing this multiple times, so we need to dig into this. And then if there's pro se's involved, then you've just bought yourself probably a lawsuit of, you know, they're going to make you prove that you're not acting as an attorney. If nothing else, distract you from buying properties. And that's never happened to me, but I know that it's happened. So you have to be very careful.
So what are your tips and tricks to be very careful?
Well, you really have to kind of go through it methodically and do due diligence. Make sure you know who the foreclosure attorney is, and make sure you have a method of notification before the docket time, and that's an anonymous source. So Barrett Daffin, for example, is a big foreclosure attorney, and they're actually based in Dallas off Beltline Road in Addison. So there's another one that's in Plano off 75. There's one in Houston. I don't remember exactly where they're located at, but so you have to establish some sort of communication with them typically before the day of the auction, especially if you're going to assist. So my analogy is on that paper. Have you ever seen pro se paperwork for bankruptcy?
No.
Not bankruptcy, but
Yes.
for sure, pro se paperwork.
For what now?
Pro se paperwork for sure, but not for bankruptcy.
Yeah, so there's a couple of questions at the very tail end of the forms, and it says, has anyone helped you with this? Yes or no? If so, please list their name. Have you paid anybody to assist you with this? And there's a place to put attorney's name and their bar number and things of that sort too. Very important that whoever's doing this, as far as the owner seller, that they do not list anyone helped them with or your name on there. If they put your name on there, I would not want, no deal's worth that, because you're going to end up in court. And again, practicing law without a license is the charge that they're going to start to float around. So you have to be really careful. You have to build that rapport with the homeowner. I will never, ever, ever, ever email the homeowner directly either with anything. I won't text him with anything mentioning pro se or bankruptcy. I want it to be a phone conversation or in-person conversation at all, if at all. So obviously you have to communicate with them, but they have to be on board. And what you don't want to do is they're going to be very amenable to do whatever they need to do to stop it. However, once they get it stopped and delayed, then you no longer have the upper hand, and they're going to start flaking out.
Yep.
Likely, and it's going to be like what they've done with the bank. They're not going to pay the bank, they're not going to pay you. So I've done a number of these where I've had to pay the reinstatement ahead of time, and there's a whole process for that, and you have to be careful on that. I just finished in North Richland Hills, just sold the house within the last 30 days of a foreclosure that I stopped. And the paperwork was signed, ironically, April 1st of 2022. Got about $75,000 in attorney's fees wrapped up in this. There was a $38,000 reinstatement. And I've sat in Fort Worth in the federal courthouse and had under oath testimony. So let me tell you, I've been through, it's like I was telling Angela, I feel like the farmer's guy. I know a lot because I've seen a lot. This one, a lot of people probably would have chalked up and said, hey, we're going to lose money on that. And I was like, nope, we're not going to lose money on this. I'll go down fighting. And so I did, was victorious, cost some money and attorney's fees, 2 different attorneys. The first attorney that I hired was for the bankruptcy. So he filed bankruptcy after we had helped him. And so that presented a number of issues. So instead of hiring a real estate attorney, hired a bankruptcy attorney, which was the right play. And then we ended up going to court in July of 2023. And then the bankruptcy court told me that they wanted me to switch the deed back to his name. So paid the reinstatement, had the warranty deed signed. He flaked out. Took a while to know what was going on, and he was thinking. So the day after Labor Day in 2022, I filed with the county courthouse, Tarrant County, the warranty deed. So now I've got a position that he's not going to do anything with that house. So I'm just going to sit. And it was about at that time, about a $375,000 house. The mortgage on it left was under $100,000. So there was some liquidity in this. So that's why you have to evaluate, how much, the attorney's costs, because if there's only, 60 grand in equity and it's going to cost you 75 grand just to be right, you got to evaluate that, right? So knowing your numbers going up front is important, and I did. But he signed a simple document, the initial document that I sent him to engage with him, via DocuSign, and he forged his wife's name. That one material piece of evidence is what allowed me to control and get this house, basically. So after we went to the federal court and I testified, and the judge said, you need to deed it back to him and you need to list them as a creditor and figure out how you're going to get them paid what you owe them in your amended bankruptcy filing over the next, because the court gives them 6 years to basically get their debts paid down through a trustee. And if they miss one payment, then it gets dismissed. But I share that with you because there's a lot of things in the background that people don't know, they don't have experience with. And, you know, once you get in a pinch, you're in a pinch. It's like going out, you know, on a lake and the boat starts to sink and you're like, oh shit, I didn't think we were going to need life jackets.
Right.
You know,
Okay.
you know, they're just
late.
like, now what? Right. So, you need to kind of have your checklist before you go. Plug in the boat. We got a life jacket. As long as I got a life jacket, the boat may not be salvageable, but at least I will be. So, I'm very analytical and my background's, you know, in
Like the
corporate
analogy.
America. What's
I
that?
like that.
I
Me
like the
too.
analogy. Yeah. I'm
I
still
love a good analogy.
I speak in analogies because I worked in technology most of my career and people don't understand. I mean, I started talking about cheeseburgers and ordering a hamburger, add the cheese versus a cheeseburger and the number. It's kind of like a rebate, right? My kids are like, well, why don't they just discount it instead of give you a rebate? I said, well, everybody that buys one that has a discount, 100% of the people are going to get the discount. A rebate, not 100% of the people are going to follow through and submit the paperwork and do all this. So they get the benefit of the sale without, you know, having to sell it initially as cheap as what they would if they just knocked the price down. So, you know, it helps get the point across. But the first analogy I had to give and why it resonated with me is somebody asked me in the PC industry, it's like, why do we have to type in a DOS prompt? Now I'm showing my age. In a DOS prompt, you know, park before we shut it off. And I thought, well, that's a very good question. And back then we didn't have Google. So I had to go look at the tech notes and, you know, learn why that was the case. And so there's platters and electromagnetic heads and all this in a hard drive in the old days. And you're like, oh, okay, now I get it. Now, how am I going to convey platters and electronic, you know, heads that float above the platters to pick up the data to a customer that works in a law office? It was a big law office in Dallas. And so I thought, okay, I got it. And they used to have, my grandparents had this thing they called a hi-fi, which was basically a console that you lifted the lid and it had a radio in there and it had a record player. And a record player had a needle, a record, and an arm. And back in the day, instead of doing a remodel, people would just, you know, move their furniture around in the living room, make it look different, right? And so I thought, okay, this woman's going to know what a record player is, and I'm going to tell her, before you move the record player and rearrange your furniture, you secure the arm on the record player so it doesn't jump off and jump on the record and scratch the record and damage the needle.
I know what those are like.
Yeah. So when I explained that to her, I said, your hard drive's like a hi-fi that has a record in there and then an arm and a needle. So what that does when you type in park, it secures that arm. So whenever somebody bumps into the desk or the cleaning crew or what have you, it doesn't bounce that needle across the record and scratch the record and damage the needle or the record. She's like, oh my gosh, I got to tell everybody in the office, you know? So that was my first analogy. And the reason I remember it's because it was an aha moment for her and me. Like, okay, if I just explained in layman's terms, you know, what's going on here, people understand that. And, you know, I use a medical analogy when I talk to homeowners. I'm like, you're not in a good situation here. It's kind of like being out in the yard trimming trees, cutting lumber, and you severely injure your leg with a saw or something like that. Do you go, well, you know what? I really don't want to pay the copay in the emergency room today, so I'm going to wait till Monday so I can pay my $20. Well, guess what? Monday may come along. You may have an infection. You may be dead. You may have bled out. So guess what? You have to pick the best alternative at the moment. So you don't want to pay the extra, $300 for the emergency room visit or whatever it is, but you're in that situation where you have to. If you wait till Monday, you might not make it. And then, the doctor says, hey, we're going to have to stitch you up here and fix this, and you're going to have a pretty bad scar. You don't go, well, you know what? Do you have a plastic surgeon in the house? Because, I wear shorts a lot or dresses a lot. I really don't want a scar. So can we, people that are in pre-foreclosure, you don't have a chance to call in the plastic surgeon if you've waited so long. Let's stop the bleeding. Let's stop the bleeding. Let's stabilize this, and then we'll talk about the next phases.
Yeah.
But if you're worried about the plastic surgeon before you stop bleeding, your priorities are in the wrong place.
Yeah. I get that.
So,
For sure.
and they tip it, it's kind of a morbid, gross one, but you know what? You gotta kind of rattle their cage and get them to think, okay, this is the emergency room. This is not a doctor's office visit, right? My doctor's office visit would have been, months ago, and then I wouldn't even be in the emergency room, right? If you're having chest pain, go get it checked out, and they might put a stent in there. If you don't go get it checked out and you have a heart attack, you might have bought yourself, at minimum, an open heart surgery.
Mm-hmm.
You might have bought yourself where you don't even have to worry them anymore because you're not going to be here, right? So, I mean, that gets people's attention, but you got to get people's attention because they've kicked the can down the road. They're gonna try and engineer this another way, and they get to a point where you can't engineer it anymore. So, I give you those analogies because I use them all the time, and it's very beneficial in getting people to kind of get out of their box and look at it in a different perspective. But when you're helping somebody stop a foreclosure, you really want to make sure that they have accountability to you. And that accountability has to be a contract of some sort, something to secure your time that you've invested in effort. We've all spent, anywhere between $25,000 and $75,000 to be in this group and to learn the knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
You have to recover that and monetize every which way you can. You're not always going to monetize, but you need to try and go into it with the attitude that I need to monetize some way, shape, or form. I don't know how, but I need to at least pay for my time and expenses, because I've driven up to Dallas, stayed in a hotel, and met a homeowner the morning of foreclosure and stopped their foreclosure. And once I do that, they sit on their laurels. I helped a woman 3 times in Plano stop her. The first one was the one that they sold it at the auction. They had to back out the sale, so she was good. And then she got complacent. And this woman was a nurse. She was a manager at a private skilled nursing facility in a residential neighborhood. So it's like not like she didn't have some sense or didn't have a job.
Mm-hmm.
She just went through COVID and got used to not making a house payment, and then all of a sudden the house of cards came down.
Yeah, I'm kidding.
And hers is kind of a sad story because she had a cousin living with her that was getting the mail and not telling her. And I did feel bad for her, but at some point in time, I said, we should have handled this months ago, and you didn't. I came up there, you weren't available to meet, didn't communicate, and you'd be in a whole lot different situation. So, I convey that also with homeowners that I'm working for. It's like, you may think, okay, he helped me stop this or she helped me stop this, and now I don't have to communicate with him as much. At the end of the day, we know what we're doing. We're professional. And, if you do that to me, it's probably not going to bode well.
Mhm.
So,
we've been ghosted plenty. What, I'm not entirely clear if we go to the courthouse to stop a foreclosure, what I can do without being sued by an attorney now.
well, you have to be careful what you do with anybody, right? So tell me what tactic you were going to use going up to the courthouse.
I've never done it before.
Yeah. So the trustee's going to say, I'm sorry. What documentation do you have to stop this? And you're going to go, well, I'm working on a contract. Sorry, Charlie. And if you do have documentation, they're going to say, well, let me try and get a hold of the attorney's office if they're nice.
So you have to have the signed contract.
Well, signed contract's not going to do it. That should have done it last week, but that's not going to. I can assure you that a bankruptcy at this point in time or a TRO are the only
Would you talk about?
ways you're going to get it stopped. And
But
you
if
got to
I
have that.
present a document showing bankruptcy, then I can get sued by an attorney for practicing
Well,
law?
you could, if you help them do a pro se. Yeah. I mean, this is somebody who's in foreclosure. When they get pressed, they're going to say, hey, he helped me fill this out. Well, you said no, he didn't. Well, he did. So, not saying you're going to get sued. I'm saying it's not worth the risk to me to do it. And, you may have a higher risk tolerance and pain tolerance, but I have a very high risk tolerance.
I do when it makes sense. This doesn't make a lot of sense. It just sounds like me not knowing what I'm doing and go get sued.
This is why you're in the big dogs. This is why you partner, is because you walk through it with people to see, oh, okay, I wasn't aware that I could get sued for practicing law without a license. That would be likely a charge that an attorney could file just to, are they going to pursue it all the way through? Maybe not.
Depending on the assets that you have.
So,
Well,
I'll say,
it also depends on how many times your name's come across at their office working with pre-foreclosure. If it happens once, maybe we're going to let this one slide. If it happens more than once, going, hey, this seems to be a systemic issue. This person's not an attorney, and they're working with people doing something which could be done as a self-representing, but looks like they might be acting as an attorney and advising people. So I'm going to go check this out.
Could you act as if you're a carrier or maybe like a close friend? Hey, I'm dropping this off for a close friend.
That's dropping it off at the courthouse. But as I discussed with you, downtown Dallas, when you go up to the whatever floor, I can't remember what floor it was in there. It's Earl something building.
the George Allen or something.
Yeah. So when you go drop it off, there's a counter that's got several different agents there, big glass doors, and you can say, hey, I'm a courier dropping this off. I'm going to say 90% of the time, they're going to say, hey, I need your driver's license. Like, well, no, I'm just a courier. Well, we need a driver's license of whoever's submitting this paperwork. So now guess what? You and your driver's license are attached to that bankruptcy filing.
So for sure, you need to have the homeowner go in there by themselves, let them know,
That's optimal. That's optimal. However, there's other ways to do it. You just have to kind of assess the homeowner in each situation. What's the risk here? So it's like saying, when you go to the emergency room, the doctor's going to say, oh, you have this condition, this is a medication. No, they're going to go through and make sure they check everything else out. If I prescribe them a medication that's going to take care of this without asking them, do you take any other medications that may interact with this? Now I didn't do my job and ask them, hey, I've got to give you some medication that could potentially help you, but it could also cause other issues if you're taking any other medication or a medication of this type, and do due diligence and ask them the next question, right? And again, analogy, because we all hear that and see it, right? You hear it in the drug commercials. If you're taking this, don't do this. If this happens, stop taking this. And
Yeah.
so, does everybody have diarrhea that takes this medication? No, but if you do, then stop taking it and consult your doctor.
Yeah.
So
Jeff, is your number the 512 number in the group?
it is.
Well, nice to
I
meet
was
you.
just talking to Jeff.
Well,
I was just talking to Jeff to see if we could possibly have him on one of our ACT sessions.
yeah.
I'm
Oh,
sure
yeah,
it'd be
sure.
a great
Hell yeah.
resource. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
I
sure a
want
lot of
to
people
use it
appreciate it.
Do we have to be careful how we are wording our drip campaigns? Like with debt relief and
When you say drip campaigns, explain to me more in
Email
detail
us.
about your campaign.
so we have stuff like, talking about refinancing and loan modifications and
It's
stuff like that.
how to stop foreclosure email. We have those.
I'd have to see it, but yes, you may not be doing that right, depending on what your language. I'd have to look at it to
We
see.
took all Brent Mott's marketing material and stuck it in there.
Oh, that's what
Yeah.
it is.
But it does talk about loan modification, deed in lieu, that kind of stuff.
Refinancing.
Just our tricks. Right?
Sale, loan forbearance.
Yeah, I mean, there's things you have to be careful with lending laws. So that's the only thing that I would say that, if you've just taken, did you take it out of Brett's little booklet?
All the goodies drive that he gave us.
I'm sorry.
It's called All the Goodies. He gave it to us. He's our marketing coach right now, so he just dropped his whole file.
Yeah. He's pretty much everybody's marketing coach. So I've been a big dog since February of 2019. So he was mine as well. So are you guys advanced or apprentice?
Apprentice.
Yeah.
Okay. Who's your coach?
A few coaches.
It's Chris.
Alcedo?
All right.
Yeah.
Chris, Brent.
And then Brian and Julie. And then
Okay.
Chanel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's Noah with everything.
What's that?
Any questions we have, we go to Shanoa.
Yeah. Well, Chanel and I know each other very well.
He's awesome. Everybody's awesome.
Yeah.
Jeff, what do you do and where are you? Just so I can get to meet you a little more.
I'm in Austin, but I spend a lot of time in Dallas. Spend some time in Houston, but I was wearing myself out trying to do all four markets. I'll do some things in San Antonio, but San Antonio is a different market as well. Austin's just a difficult market because it's always overpriced and expensive. So I know Dallas. I've lived up there. So I'm very familiar with the areas and have done a number of transactions there a lot, actually.
I like it here. We're right downtown.
Yeah, I've done it from just east of 35, Stemmons. Bought a house over there. Never set foot in it. I assigned that one to Highland Park.
Cool.
So I had one in Highland Park that was off of Cornell, which is a few blocks south of SMU Stadium, football stadium.
That's cool.
So my first apartment was off of McCallum and Coit, 1 block north of Campbell Road in Richardson, North Dallas.
I know where Richardson is.
My first office in technology was the North Park Savings Building at 75 in Campbell.
I'm still learning the place. We go between Jacksonville, Florida, and here. So.
Oh, okay. Okay.
If
Yeah.
you want to do anything in Jacksonville, we're there.
What's that now? What about Jacksonville?
If you ever want to do anything there with real estate, we're there.
Yeah, I haven't ever done anything outside of Texas. Yeah, it's
Well, thank you so much, Jeff. I honestly, I appreciate you for being available and able to jump on these calls with us.
Yeah.
I've learned a lot, and
Yeah,
so
thank you so much.
Thanks for all the info.
little.
Yeah. And again, everybody does it a little bit different. So, I'm not technically a coach, but you can,
Not yet.
you can drop Shanoa a message saying, "Hey, we had a great call with Jeff this morning. What's your recommendation on him for foreclosure knowledge?"
Okay.
There's some things that she's incorporated that I've, again, analogy, right? So we used to have these inner circle meetings. So we'd have a RIA meeting, again, before COVID, RIA meeting, which people that were interested in it would sit in a room and then they would talk about the 3-day event. And then once you joined, we would have another room that would be the inner circle meeting. So all the big dogs. So it's kind of like the meetups now, but it was a little more content driven prior to COVID. And so I'm an apprentice as well. So my first deal was a very different one. And I had to get Shanoa on the phone the day of the auction. And so we had to work through some differences that, one, are pretty advanced and two are not, in a freshman level course, if you will. It's probably more like a senior level, if not master's course, what we had to do. So I worked with her closely on that one, and then three other ones not long after that. So we got to spend quite a bit of time together. Just, some of it was interesting and some of it was, a little tense, but not between Shanoa and I, but just the deal.
Yeah.
And other big dogs. And other big dogs.
It sounds like you jumped in the deep end and got to swim with the sharks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Me and my analogies as well. Okay, that's dope.
Yeah.
I love that.
So I mean, I joined mid-February, and that first hairy deal was May 6th. So, and it actually is a property that I've homesteaded and reside in now. So yeah.
Nice. All right. That's a good story.
Yeah, it was an interesting transaction, but
that's cool. Awesome.
Well, we'd love to have you at that 8:30. We were calling it accountability coaching and training. I don't know if we should call it coaching. I was thinking maybe accountability content.
Yeah, and I don't mind doing those, but I'm going to be transparent with you guys. When you do this long enough, a lot of people want to extract information from you, but they don't want to give back in either partnering or some other way. And, none of us are a nonprofit. Brent and Chris and those guys, they get compensated in other ways, as well as opportunities to partner. So
opportunities.
What's that?
We're thinking opportunities to partner, really, too.
Yeah. So that's why I did this a lot with people, but what happens is people just want to extract knowledge and then don't want to give back. And, nobody, it's like a dating relationship. It's like, hey, take me out to dinner, but I don't want to do anything else. It's like, that gets pretty old. That gets pretty old pretty quick. I mean, again, sorry about the analogy, but everybody gets that, it's like, if I'm just going to be a meal ticket, I'm not interested. Right. So, but I enjoy your company and I enjoy going out to dinner. Okay. Well, then why don't you ask me to dinner?
Right. Can you,
I hate to say it that way, but yeah. What's that?
No, I get that. I was going to say, well, is it possible you can meet with us, but give us cliffhangers? So we desire to know more and say, hey, if you want to really do this, we have JV deals or partnering opportunities. So
yeah. I don't mind sharing. I don't mind sharing, but there's a lot of things I do that I've, you build a toolbox in life, a professional toolbox, right? And everything that I do in real estate, I didn't learn from the big dogs. I've learned through doing, blood, sweat, and tears and things of that sort. And, again, another analogy. So you have people who are contractors, and then you have people that are craftsmen, right? What's the difference between hiring a contractor and hiring a craftsman?
Yes.
Experience.
a
Price.
eye for, probably a little higher level quality and things of that sort. So, a lot of the things that people will tell you are more contractor grade. I've taken some time to do some things that's, in some areas, particularly in pre-foreclosure, that's more of a craftsman type thing. So the reason I say that is because there's things that I do, and I've been told. I had a conversation with Shanoa. I was in an airport, and she called me with a concern, and so I said, "Okay, well, tell me what you know." So I'd partnered with an apprentice, and they were in Houston, and we were working on a project in San Antonio. It was post-COVID, and so he was sharing the excitement with his coach. And these people are pretty seasoned professionals, right? And the number one goal in the big dogs is don't do something that's going to jeopardize resources or lose money, right? No deal's better than a bad deal.
Yeah.
And so that's also my philosophy. However, through the apprentice, and this is why I have the philosophy that I have, through the apprentice big dog and messaging to his coach, his excitement, what he was doing, the coach did not have the correct perspective of what all we were doing. It was new to the big dog, right? This is a sharp guy. And so he, in his conversation with Shanoa, was like, "Hey, I've got a concern, that one of my students or one of the people I'm coaching, is involved in a transaction that may be adding additional risk." So instead of picking up the phone and saying, "Hey, why don't you get your partner on the phone with me and let's talk about this?" He just was concerned about it and went to Shanoa. And so I'm in the airport in Dallas, Fort Worth. I'll never forget. And Shanoa reaches out to me. And again, Shanoa and I had built rapport at this point in time. So Shanoa knew me, and my personality because, I'd worked through some things with her, some opportunities. So she had a pretty good understanding of who I was and how I responded. So she could be just transparent with me. And I said, "Well, no, that's a great concern." I said, "However, let me tell me what you know." So she told me what you know. And I'm like, "That's directionally correct." I said, "However, here are the other things that are not known." And I went through a laundry list of them. And she's like, "Okay, now I feel better." She said, "Just do me a favor, Jeff. Do not share this kind of information with people without working with them first, getting to know them, because 99% of the people that would do what you just described to me would not do it successfully and could potentially lose money." So based on that conversation with Shanoa, I thought, okay, I have to take a little bit different perspective here, because if I share something with somebody, it's like, Evil Knievel says, "Oh, you got to go maintain this speed, make sure the wind's not doing this, and, hit the ramp at this speed and stand up on the foot pegs at this point in time in the ramp, and, you should be good." Well, that's easily said, but how many crashes has he done and how many jumps has he done before he got to that venue, right? If I tried to do that through my first jump, I'm probably not going to be successful.
Not gonna make it.
Yeah, so I mean that's another analogy, right? It's like, I get you. Can the jump be made? Absolutely. But do you need to have some experience with other jumps and being able to mitigate, what happens if a gust of wind comes and yada yada. So anyway, I could go on and on and on with analogies, but it gives you a perspective.
Hey, man, I like analogies. I like, and I took a personality, some tests recently. It says I understand the importance of like talking in pictures and doing analogies. I think they're powerful.
Yeah. So, I mean, everybody understands the Evil Knievel one, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hey,
What's it
so
take to make a success? Go ahead.
I'm sorry to jump off this call. I got a lead call, and I'll call you guys back. Okay.
All right. Cool. Good luck.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Thanks.
Yeah, I don't know if it'll disconnect us or not, but are you guys still there? Yeah, I guess you're still there. But anyway, so you have to really be careful. because you don't want to jeopardize anybody else in the group. And if your appetite for risk is greater than other people's, you got to talk about that up front as well. So, but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's
The bigger for me, it's calculated risks. I don't know. I got a lot out of the book. Am I being too subtle? Sam Zell, years ago. And then I own and operate some mobile home parks in Michigan. And I've gone for the airlines. So I've done a lot of talk about risk.
you were a pilot with the airlines.
I still am. I'm on a leave of absence right now.
Gotcha.
But yeah, calculated risks everywhere all the time, my entire career, right?
Yeah. Well, especially if you're a pilot, you understand, you can land a plane hundreds of times at the same airport, and then all it takes is one variable with the equipment or with the weather, and it changes the whole dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
So,
chain of events that you can break. We talk a lot about the chain of events going up to an accident. If any link is broken, right, then you
right.
prevent the accident. It's kind of like due diligence on a property.
Yeah, absolutely. So Angela and I were talking last night, and I'm like, so is there a contract in place? Well, no. And I'm thinking the problem with doing this without a contract in place is it opens you up to giving away your time. It also allows you to say, hey, I'm working with this individual on a greater scheme of things. If somebody starts, questioning, from a legality perspective, if you have a contract in place versus not having a contract in place, it's a lot easier to speak to moving down the road than going, well, I thought about it. You don't go out and buy a wardrobe for a job that you haven't had. What's that?
She's convinced she's keeping her home, doesn't need our help, but she's going to fix it this morning alone.
Yeah. And I guess she's not going to log on the call. So she really didn't want to sell the house or have you guys help. She just wanted to stop the foreclosure.
Yeah. And Angela's like, well, we're not doing this without a signed contract. It's a waste of our time. Jen's already spent like 20 hours putting together this contract after her and Grant got on the phone. Grant Gale talked this lady through it all. And then she's
2 contracts, 2 weeks.
So you guys were working with Grant Gale on this?
Yeah.
Why did he tuck out?
I think he's just busy on everything else with
He
more
just
equity.
doesn't really want to deal, close it.
What now?
He basically went through the conversation from a hot transfer, right, from Jen.
Mhm.
And so took it to the finish line on that phone call and then dumped everything on her, which I understand. He said, you need to do this and this and this. And so she took care of it. Then the lady, we help her or she helped her and then she disappears and wants to do it on her own.
It's been a lot of time.
So it's like, such a time burn at this point. It's just like, whatever, lady.
Yeah. Did Grant not see the value in this? Because my understanding of how Grant works is totally different than that. He gets pulled in, he kind of controls it and then gives you a piece of it.
He's just really busy, I think.
Yeah.
Constantly working on deals. I think he forgets about our deal or something.
He even said, he was like, you put yourself on the lease agreement as a landlord. I was like, okay. So obviously my plan was to go back to him, once we got everything signed, but it never happened. So
Call Grant and have her talk to us. Well, it's
When you say you got everything signed, what is everything got signed?
well, because I didn't get anything signed because I sent her 2 options. I sent her one email with a contract, a lease agreement, and a JV agreement, and then a separate email this is what Grant said, a separate email with a different contract and a different lease agreement. And she was supposed to take a look at what she wanted, and we were calling her back 2 days later, and
she ghosts like everybody does. We're finding out everybody's getting ghosted all over, including us.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'd have to see what you guys sent her before I could, say one way or another what I would have done possibly different.
Well, one of them was that she turns into a tenant for a month-to-month lease, and then the other one was we rehab it, and so she still lives in it, and she pays all the expenses. She keeps it up for showings and everything, and then we split the profit once it's sold 50-50.
Yeah. No, I get the concept, but are these Trek contracts that you're using?
Yeah. And then the Texas residential lease agreement as well.
Is that a Trek contract or is that a Board of Realtors contract?
I think it's a realtor's contract, actually. I don't even know if I'm supposed to use it, but I did.
Yeah, that was my next question. Because you're not, if you're not, and it says in there, if this is not signed by a realtor, because you have to put a number and stuff in there. I'm not a realtor either.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's why I asked that question. Because if you're using a Board of Realtors lease, it's probably going to be negated anyway.
Well, she didn't sign anything or, you know.
No, but I'm saying if she would have signed it, she could have had an easy out in small claims going, sorry, they're not realtors. This is a realtor contract.
I'm gonna take the realtor's exam then, because I already finished one of the courses, so.
Well, that's going to limit you, I think, in some areas of investment, but you know, it's
We're
people
partners.
do it all the, what's that?
Yeah. Genoa recommended that she become a realtor and me not. She said that's the best power combo you can have. Like,
Yeah.
Right. But I think you still have to disclose,
yeah,
in April of 2021, I think they changed it. So there's not as near as much anonymity if it's your spouse, sibling, child, but Chanel knows that way better than I do.
okay.
But yeah, I mean, it's, to me, I've just gotten to a point where, I'll ask qualifying questions up front. Not that I want to kill a deal, but I also don't want to spend a bunch of time and not be able to monetize either. So
Yeah, this is a crazy different world from what I've been doing with mobile homes. But at first, it's like, holy shit, a seller's on the line. We're got one. Like, and then you start realizing, what, this isn't worth my time.
yeah. Well, you know, you need to get some details about the transaction too, and how much, you know, equity is there truly in this property. So if there's not a whole lot of equity in it,
Yep.
you know, I've been able to figure out ways. I've been able to figure out ways to monetize it, you know, in a small amount, you know, under $1,000, which doesn't sound like a lot, but if I've got, you know, 4 or 5 hours in it, that's a whole lot better than nothing.
Yeah. I think we're going to sign up a short sale later today. Angela is. How did you meet Angela?
She reached out to me yesterday or last evening. So I know Chris and Nancy very well.
Oh, okay.
So I think she reached out to Chris Clay.
Yeah, that's right. We got him on the line.
Yeah.
He signed us up.
Yeah, Chris is a good guy. They're all good guys, or all good people.
I haven't met any bad ones yet.
What's that?
I haven't met any bad ones yet. So we're just excited to be here, man.
Yeah, it's a good group. You know, and you have to be careful, because there's things that get sideways and people get their, you know, feelings hurt and feathers ruffled, and but really you need to sit down with people and just have an open conversation and kind of see how they work in that. So it's, you know, it's one of those things where just got to put the time in and build the relationships, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, it's fun. It's been different with COVID and all the moratoriums and things. I've had a lot of crazy stuff though. I mean, I had a house a year ago, November, that I stopped with 13 minutes to spare in San Antonio, and it was actually, the house was built in 2019, so it was a relatively new house. She was a Army vet, retired. It was a VA loan. I stopped it in November. Well, the administration put a moratorium in place at the end of November, that there was a moratorium on VA loans until May 31st, and then they extended that through the end of 2024. They did that because they wanted to get votes. So by 13 minutes, she bought herself over a year of time. So the problem is she had just gotten out of the hospital when I helped her, so I had to go drop the paperwork off, which I was not real excited about, but I did it. And she had just listed it with a realtor, and I had the conversation with her and the realtor on Monday. I'm like, I can't do anything until you terminate your listing agreement. So there's just things that you got to make sure. Yeah, I could have jumped in there, head first and wasted a lot of time, but this particular one, I'm like, yeah, I'm not. You need to terminate your listing agreement, and then we'll move forward. And tomorrow, your morning is your docket time. And then the realtor got on the phone with me, literally in a conference call, and she's like, "Well, the photographers are supposed to show up Wednesday and take pictures." I'm like, I'm not sure you're understanding the gravity of what I just said. The docket time is tomorrow. There won't be any need for pictures if you don't stop this foreclosure. Well, we got it listed. Will they stop it for that? And I'm like, no. And this is the same realtor that sold her the house, several years earlier. It just blows my mind because you have realtors and then you have real estate professionals, and there is a difference.
Oh yeah.
Just because you have a real estate license does not mean you have, incarnal knowledge. But
yeah, a lot of them.
Anyway, it's every deal is similar, but it's different. So
Yeah, nothing goes to plan. I know that.
yeah. So this woman, have you guys met her face to face that's in foreclosure? No. What's the house like?
I don't know. I wasn't working this one. I've got several others.
Oh, okay. So you haven't even looked at the house?
No.
Yeah. And you guys are primarily doing email campaigns, or what are y'all doing?
We're cold cocking. Cold cock. I don't know what cold cocking is. But we're cold calling.
That sounds like a fight when you cold cock somebody.
Yeah, spatchcock a turkey. We're cold calling consistently every afternoon. We're going to increase it to all day, and then that's seeing results. The emails aren't doing shit, which we heard that's kind of typical now. That we got it.
Yeah.
Still, we got a drip campaign, so we're touching people. And then this week, we're trying to start with.
When you say a drip campaign, you're talking about what? How are you dripping them?
We have Podio. We had it before we showed up with big bugs. So we have
Oh, gotcha.
Podio architect, so he just builds out whatever we want.
Okay.
So we got the marketing emails going for foreclosures. Next step on that would be direct mail, I suppose. But before we get there, we're doing text because everybody seems to be getting good results on text. So we're working on that this week. And then we door knock, and we're, know a couple other big dogs that are door knocking. So we're just.
Where do you source your list from?
So they taught us, get it off the county website, and then we found a VA to do it, and then we found AI, like automatic data pooling. So it's all just done in-house with AI now.
So do you subscribe to a service, or do you have the AI that does it?
So I had described what I wanted to my Podio architect. And they were currently building it. So we just plugged into the other person's system that was currently building it. It's still like not fully built out, but we like permanently partnered with them now. And they're developing it. It's really cool. Coming next is every landowner for every parcel in the entire United States, including the LLC owners. So that's exciting. But right now we have foreclosure, and then everything else is coming down the pipe. It's just being programmed and built out with like 20 people are working on it. It's pretty cool.
So where is the list? Where are you getting the list that you're currently using? So I hear that you're working on an AI, but where is the current list coming from?
Foreclosures are all already set up for AI. I get it. Every time they come out, every time something posts to the website, I see it.
Okay.
Substitute trustees coming soon. But for foreclosures,
So you're not subscribing to Real Estate IQ or any of that.
no, we got really awesome foreclosure data.
Gotcha.
The rest is coming, but we were with Flipping Pro, and we found out over the last few months, all the lists are already called out. So we need it like hot off the press. Then we're doing the DNC list internally next or now this week, I think. So we're just making our own lists as we've learned what Phil taught us, I guess, and kind of got to the bottom of where the list lead generation comes from, other than if you're
Right.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's what they taught us for lead generation.
So I've used electronic campaigns also, and I've used some listings releases, so that's why.
What's your favorite marketing electronically?
It's changed. I think, email has potential, but I think texting is, something they've changed texting though too. I mean, they had some laws go into effect last September. So you have to make sure all your numbers are registered. You have to make sure you have a website, with the proper verbiage and all that good stuff.
Website with the proper verbiage. We have the website that they built us, that we just plugged into.
I don't know who you're talking about.
When you show up your first week or two for the build out of your business, you get a website.
You're talking about the big dogs?
Yeah.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, mine was built by a individual, but similar thing. But when you're doing a text campaign, legally you have to follow, certain parameters, and if you don't, it will shut you down quickly. And then it's hard to.
A lot of numbers. You go through a lot of phone numbers.
What's that?
Like launch control gives you all these burner phone numbers to go through, right?
Right.
So we were looking at launch control, and then what's the other one? It seemed like the other one might be better for us. It's Smarter Contact because it plugs in with Podio, where I think launch control is its own thing. But my idea, I don't see anybody doing this. This is what we're working on this week. Is how you can do the audio text where it's your voice coming over text instead of a voicemail?
You're talking about ringless voicemail, or you talking about something else?
No, I send you a text message, and when you receive it, you hear my voice talking.
Gotcha.
Or I send you a text message, and when you receive it, it's a picture of my marketing message. Or you can also have a video text. I don't think anybody's using anything but text for text, but you also have audio, video, and picture options that I don't think are being tapped into. That would probably.
I've seen video. I haven't seen just voice.
You know what I'm talking about? When you hit the plus and it's got the audio option, you just record your voice and send it as a text.
Right.
I like that better than voicemails, because voicemails, you got to go in, listen, they're a pain in the ass. Text is like right there, you just push play.
Right. I would do it, in a mass marketing campaign, not individually. So
yeah, that's what I got a cool VA that's wanting to do it with us.
Oh, okay.
But I was just saying we could just record our voice messages. Can you do this in mass? And he's like, yeah, I think we can do that. So we'll just record what marketing messages we want and see how it goes, I guess.
Yeah, I found that if I don't put the address in the message, it's a lot fewer take rates.
So the mass texts will they script that for you? I'm sure.
You have to script it, but yeah, I mean, you have to create a CC or what is it, CCV file, Excel spreadsheet, common delimited file.
Is that what it is?
CV file.
I thought CSV meant comma separated value.
Value.
I don't know. I don't know very much about computer stuff.
Yeah,
I could have just
it's a common delimited file, like, instead of like a XLS spreadsheet. But you have to submit it in a CSV format.
Yeah,
and then it'll pull the address out of that and plug it into each individual text. So 123 Smith Street, versus your house is going to foreclosure. So
Yeah.
it's a lot more specific to the property than just a generic.
It's actually right. CSV is short for comma separated value.
Yeah. Yipper. But so how much time do you guys spend in Dallas?
Half or more, because I go back and forth from my daughter in Jacksonville, and then we got a place in Jacksonville.
So your daughter's in Dallas or Jacksonville?
Jacksonville.
Oh, okay.
But if we need to stay in Dallas more, Jen has been, so it's convenient, and we can do more as a couple doing this.
Right. What did she do prior to jumping into real estate?
She's still working, but dropping a lot of trips as a flight attendant.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What airline does she work with?
We're both United.
Oh, okay. So they're based in Chicago, right?
We got bases everywhere. Houston, Orlando, Denver, Vegas, New York.
Yeah.
San Francisco, LA, Guam.
Where do you guys have to commute to start your trip?
Right now we're Chicago based. I've hit every base we have but Cleveland.
Gotcha. You ready to be done with flying?
Man, it's a really great job. I got in super early, so I have a ton of seniority. I pick and choose whatever I want, and I fly the best equipment all over the world, but it's a job. They tell me what I'm going to make and when I got to be there.
Yeah.
I'd like to go back, and I just hate going to work, and I like flying the jet when I'm in it, but it's all the other bullshit that goes along with having a job.
Right. Scheduling and all that. That's what I tend to hear from people in the airline industry. It's just the inconsistent schedule and changes. And
Here, though, I mean, I've got enough seniority with 19 years left, more seniority than a lot of guys retire with. So it's like I can really just pick whatever I want.
right.
And I can fly with guys where they buy my trips if we're getting jets delivered. I fly with the guys that do the training on the guys coming onto the airplane. They buy me off the trip, and then I get paid to stay home when Boeing's delivering airplanes. But there's so many loopholes and cheats that there's some guys. I know a few guys that have made a lot of money in real estate, absolutely don't need the job. One of them said to me, he's like, this job gets really awesome when you don't need it anymore. And I don't ever want to have a job again, ever. And
yeah,
maybe if I can pick and choose trips I want and then advertise them, and other people will want those trips. So I can just, if I feel like it, keep the job and then just hardly ever fly. I'm just not sure if I want to or not. Feels so much freer having a leave of absence and doing what I want to do than reporting to somebody else and getting paid what they tell me.
right. How long is your leave of absence?
At least till October, so up to 2 years from February, or no, up to about 2 years if I want to.
Wow, that's awesome that you're able to do that.
Yeah. Sometimes they offer longer. I'd like to take a 5-year. We'll see what happens. Kind of over it, man. I love the jet.
What's that?
I'm kind of over it right now. I don't know if I ever want to give up my seniority number because it's like pretty valuable. But I don't want to have.
Do you still get seniority while you're on leave of absence?
Yeah, that's concrete. Once you get that number, you're stuck there until the airline goes out, or you merge, or you retire.
Yeah. So you don't have to fly. It's based on your number, huh?
You just get more senior while you're gone. It's based on growth plus retirements. So right now there's a ton of retirements, and then we had a ton of growth. So it just shot me to the top. It's still a job.
Were you in the military or?
No, my dad was an airline pilot. My brother went in the military. He flew Harriers. I tried to get a guard spot really hard and never got picked up. Had a bunch of interviews after 9/11 and just never got close, but didn't quite make it. But I like hit a home run getting into the airlines when I did.
Yeah. How did you get your hours to get into the United?
I just worked hard. During college for the second half, I had enough flight time and experience to instruct. So I was going to school for what I was learning. It was a joke. And then I was teaching the other peers I was with how to do it. So like
Oh, wow.
as soon as I graduated, I got hired by the airlines. Everybody else was screwing around and drinking too much beer. Now they were like thousands of numbers junior to me.
Cool. Yeah, it's definitely a seniority based, and I've done some flight attendants, and it's amazing how long some of the flight attendants have been in the industry, and they're pretty good age.
I fly because so the position I'm in so senior. I stay first officer on the 787, and then Chicago's senior too. But
Chicago what?
is also extremely senior. I'm like the most senior airplane in the most senior base, and I'm right at the top of it. So that it took me 25 years to get that.
Yeah,
I fly with flight attendants all the time. They've been at the airline longer than I've been alive.
that's crazy.
Yeah, they don't have a retirement age, so as long as they can live, they can work or function, I guess.
Yeah, wow. And they don't take that many trips. They just take trips here and there.
Yeah, they pretty much do whatever the hell they want because they just pick it, and then if they don't want to go,
Right.
they put it on a board and other people take it away because they're all the best trips.
Right. Crazy industry.
Yeah, a lot of variety. It is. I would not ever want to own it. Well, I shouldn't say that, but I see the difficulty management has working through a union like ours, but it sure makes us spoiled.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely well, you don't see unions much anymore anyway, but airline union is definitely one that has been strong and true.
Yeah, my buddy plays baseball or played. He's a coach now. But I think they got us beat with the union power in baseball.
You're talking about the majors?
Uh,
Yeah. Well, once they get 4 or 5 years, or
it's similar to the airlines, man. It's almost like flying at the regionals, flying little airplanes, getting your flight time. He's initially riding around in buses everywhere, working his ass off. And now he's doing that as a coach. He's at AAA. I think he's going to make it back to the majors as a coach.
yeah. What team's he with?
Right now he's in Vegas playing for Oakland. He's been with Oakland as a coach for 3 or 4 years now. And he keeps moving up. It's exciting seeing him do it twice.
Yeah. As a player, now as a coach?
Yeah, he's the first person in history to ever hit a grand slam his very first pitch at bat in a major league game.
Oh, wow.
So he had a pretty good run. He is one of my business partners on the mobile home parks. So he's into real estate too. And I think he's going to be a killer capital raiser.
Cool. Cool.
But
Well,
we got a lot of phone calls and shit to do.
yeah, I was going to say, it doesn't look like the homeowner is going to sign on. So are you going to walk down to the courthouse?
Yeah, maybe we've got another lead texting me and stuff. So we're just, we're going to stay busy. We do every single day. I love what we're doing. I'm where I want to be. And I've gotten up excited before we met Big Dogs. And now it's just like turbocharged.
Supersized?
Journey.
Yeah. How long? When did y'all join?
February.
Oh, okay. Cool. All right. Well, great to meet you and have a great day.
All right, man. If you're in Dallas, I'd love to meet you in person, buy you some dinner or beer or whatever.
Yeah. I don't know what number Angela included on this, but if you want to text me your guys' contact, that would be great.
Okay. I'm the 303 number and I'll send you my contact card.
Okay. Sounds good.
Cool. Thanks for your time.
Talk to you later. Yeah. My pleasure.
All right.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.